This is Doug with the Practicing Accountant Podcast. Thank you very much for joining us for this episode. Today we'll be talking about current events in fraud, as well as a new book on pricing, and of course, one of the most powerful and important topics we discuss here at the Practicing Accountant, and that is niching. We hope you enjoy this episode. Have you I know I mentioned it today, but have you dug more into this Borger's SEC fraud thing at all?
Uh, Other than hearing Blake Oliver bitch about it, no.
Yeah. Blake calling out the Colorado Society at this point. I don't know if it's necessarily appropriate or his role to be doing, but that's the role he's assumed. But this dude, like, this is bad what he did, what he pulled off. And I see it in some of my clients, even my clients. Like I see it where they're doing a little bit too much work, and you're kind of like, how are you able to like instill quality control in that type of environment? How are you growing
Mm.
so much without additional resources? How are you able to do as much as you're doing with what you have? And so
Wasn't
I
it
think, go ahead.
140 some audits
Oh,
he did?
I don't know what the number is, but um, I mean, the PCOB, I've been inspected by the PCOB. I have no love lost for them. They've made my life hell a couple of times in my own career.
Mm.
Not hell to the sense that I was doing what anything like this guy's doing, but more like you didn't document this right, or you could have done more testing here, or you didn't explore this risk deep enough, stuff like that. Like, just stuff was like, yeah, I'll do that next year. But this, I mean, this guy, I mean, he basically was making shit up. Like he was making up work papers, he was making up meetings, he was making up reports. I mean, he was just making it up. And I would imagine that whatever he was, he probably has the best margins of any CPA in the history of public accounting because
I
because
bet.
he was value billing from a perspective that I don't want to ever have. Um, I mean, he has no. It's just the stuff he pulled here is crazy. So for anyone watching, listening, check out this BF Borgers case. This is it's the largest that I'm aware of. $14 million fine against him, 2 million of which comes out of his own pocket, which rightfully so. But it's interesting because there's no talk that I have seen yet about jail time.
Mm. Yeah.
It's just fines.
Yep.
And to Blake Oliver's point, he is still listed as a CPA in the state of Colorado. So you kind of wonder like how's this all going to come together? But 1,500 SEC filings from 21 to 23 were identified as being. And this guy's from Colorado. I mean, he worked at Grant Thornton. He worked at Eide Bailey. He worked at his own firm. I mean, BF Borgers is a Colorado firm. I think they had an office in New York at some point, or he was affiliated with one, I think. But
Should look and make sure he's not a member of this group.
yeah, we'll say hi. Hi, Borgers. I think I've met you before, and I don't know if I'll ever be able to meet you again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another thing I'll point out, and this is, I'm not sure how to feel about this, but a new book came out just this past week, I think, from Jodi Pedar. And Jodi is the radical CPA. Some of you may recognize that name. She built a name for herself a decade ago when she wrote her first book, The Radical CPA,
Mm.
and has done her own work as a CPA with her firm, but is also doing somewhat like what we're doing, probably a little bit more professionally at this point. But she's definitely doing her part to support other firms in their efforts. But she just came out with a new book. I guess I'm giving her free marketing right now, but it's called Radical Pricing. And I was excited for it. I went on Amazon and I looked it up and I couldn't find it. I found her old book, Radical CPA from a decade ago. I couldn't find this new one, Radical Pricing. And then I went to CPA Trendlines, which is where she's apparently roosting right now. And the book's on here and it's $275.
Whoa.
Yeah, that was kind of ballsy.
Whoa.
And it
Yeah.
comes with a print and PDF upgrade bundle. So, it's got a little extra to it. Which I thank you. And I mean, very easily could I say, well, if you read the book, will it raise your prices? And you're like,
For
yes.
sure.
Will it
Yeah.
justify the cost? Yes, I get it. But still, like that's a barrier to entry. I didn't expect to consider buying this book. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
275. I don't want to make that decision today.
I don't think
I've
I'd
got
buy a book
others.
for that.
I can absolutely I can see it. I can see doing that. And if I listen to what the book says and I do what the book says, I'm sure I will make that $275 back in a split second. But
Yeah.
just the decision, just the weight that it creates of like having to compare that to what I will or won't make in the future is not a decision I want to make. I just want to be like, oh, $25, I'll buy that. Even $50, I'd be like, yeah, I'll buy that. But 275, it's just like, I
It's like
don't
a
know.
college textbook.
Totally. Right. Yeah. She a professor. Did I take
Maybe.
her class in college? Anyway, I digress. So just two topics on my mind here to start our conversation today. But I really want to
Nice.
talk about is something we have talked about before, and I want to explore now because it's a great time to be doing it.
Mm.
And that is niching. And I bet someone right now just rolled their eyes and go, "Oh no, the niching conversation again." Well, no, it is an important enough conversation to have multiple times because I bet whoever rolled their eyes hasn't done any work since the last time they heard us talk about it. And I don't see firms doing it much independently on their own either. That brings up one more concept I learned today, and actually it ties together somehow. The words I heard today were honest overconfidence. So repeating, that's honest overconfidence. And where I heard this concept was from a podcast from Michael Lewis, who wrote Liar's Poker and Moneyball and Blind Spot. He's a great journalist, and he really humanizes stories. But he's got a great podcast too called Against the Rules, and the podcast was about mansplaining.
Mhm.
It was about the overconfidence of men when they're explaining something, typically to a female, and they tend to say, well, have you thought of this? And I know you should be doing this, and this is how you should do it. And they're just mansplaining, and they're coming from this place of honest overconfidence. And I think CPAs tend to have an honest overconfidence about their book of business, about the quality of their clients, about the stability of their firm, about their ability to have a better busy season. I mean, that's kind of an optimistic bias at this point. But this honest overconfidence, I think, is saying in the context of this is I'm niched or I don't need to niche or niching isn't important. I think there's some honest overconfidence there that needs to be explored. I
Yep.
think we need to ask the question, first of all, and I know I'm gonna pick on you in a minute because I know you've got
Hmm.
this nailed. And I do too in a way, I guess, also. But let's just ask, okay, what are the benefits to you of having a strong niche?
Decommoditization. We, you can look up any CPA firm and their website generally looks exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
We're hyper niched in what we do, and that allows us that piece of it. Pricing power is a big one. Marketing is a lot easier when you have an avatar to talk to instead of just throwing it out to the public. Branding is an easy one. We've branded ourselves as an actual, like our website is specific to the industry I'm in. So yeah, there's a ton of benefits, and we need to point out the niching is not excluding clients in other industries or outside of your niche. It's simply a marketing message, and I have to say that a lot, but it's just your marketing message. It doesn't mean you can't, if you're niched in construction, it doesn't mean that you can't bring on a weaving person, underwater basket weaving client. It's just
Good luck with
your
that one.
message. Yeah, yeah.
Let me ask a different question. Has anything become harder because you've niched?
Not off the top of my head. Can I think of something?
Mm, mm. Well, it's an interesting observation. I mean, because I think we do ask that question frequently. What's so great about niching? But what is the downfall about niching? And I think the logical response to that would be what you just pointed out. If I niched hard, I won't be able to get all the clients I don't want. right? Or I'm afraid I won't get the clients that I don't really want to work with. Like there's not a lot of hard about niching other than choosing it. Like
Hmm.
choosing it might be what's hard.
Yep.
And I had a conversation today with a client around this topic, you know, finding that niche, knowing that they want to niche, knowing that, yeah, I'd love to say that I'm the roofer, a bookkeeper. I'd love to say that I'm the rental equipment tax preparer, or the oil and gas person, or the construction, or the GC, or the subcontractor bookkeeper. I mean, I'd love to be able to say that, but I just don't know how, and I don't know which. So I think maybe that's the question today. It's like, how do you pick a niche? Because we can justify it with a lot of what you just described. Yes, you'd be seen as an expert. Clients will come to you. You'd be able to price more. Your branding's easier. Your business development easier. Your networking's easier. The packages you put together are easier. Your efficiencies increase. Your optimization increases. Your experience in the job is better. I mean, we could go on with lists of reasons why, but how? How do you niche? I've got some ideas, as you might guess. One
Shocking.
way is right. Um, so here in Colorado and in Denver specifically, we have a publication called the Denver Business Journal. I'm sure that in each of your cities that there's a similar version of this journal. It's a local paper, and maybe it's gone fully digital, or maybe they still spit out paper like I like to read. Um, but in that Denver Business Journal, I'm exposed to what's going on in the market in Denver. And so I can see which industries are going up, which ones are struggling, which ones are just blowing it out, which ones are getting investment. I can see what the market is doing to the industry niches specifically, as well as the whole geography. They go so far as to print a list in every weekly edition of the Denver Business Journal. There's a list of the top 25 construction companies, top 25 insurance companies, top 25 marijuana companies, top 25 whatever. And so I have a list each week of potential candidates should I pick that niche to pursue. And granted, these are kind of bigger ones, so I'm not saying they're going to be all within reach, but there's definitely some that are just earlier niches that are growing. But that type of a publication reading about your industry or in your market is one way to start being curious about your niche, just what's out there. And when you look at niches, I think there's two ways to do it. One, what you're passionate about, and two, what makes sense. What you're passionate about might be, I love fishing, so I'm going to look for outdoors companies, fishing companies, anglers, whatever. I'm going to target what I'm passionate about. I like bikes. I'm going to look for people that fix bikes or sell bikes. I like sports equipment. I'm going to go after the sporting goods shop or whatever it might be. Follow your passions. One way to help you select your niche. Another way is to look at what's growing in the market. Like your best niche is probably the one that's got the most traction in the market right now, or is just on the cusp of becoming a bigger piece of your market. They're the ones that really need you right now. And they might only be like a $2 million company right now, but next year they could be 10 or they could be 20. Like looking for the logical niche, the one that really speaks either to your experience or to the market is one way to go about picking your niche. I think there's a third way too, and this one I think anyone can do. It's to go through your clients and sort them by various niching qualities.
Sure.
Sort it by industry. Like, how many general contractors do you have? How many manufacturers do you have? How many oil and gas clients do you have? You can sort it by geography. Where are they? You can sort it by size, revenue, or EBITDA. You can sort it by growth or the ownership structure. Are they PE backed, VC backed? Are they family operated? Look in your own data and you can find evidence of niching that you're doing probably unconsciously.
Yep. There's you'd also look at niching by services. So I think a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people think of niching as an industry.
Mm-hmm.
And to your point, you can niche anyway. You can be the best payroll person ever for any industry, but payroll is your niche. or 1040s, or pick something in the tax realm that you want to be great at, that you already are great at, and that niche, and use that as your marketing message.
Yeah,
It just
right.
makes everything so much easier.
Well, I think to your point, like I went through my clients that I'm meeting this month of May, and I niched them, and so I uber niched them, I guess you could say. I looked at how many partners in public accounting I'm working with, how many managers in public accounting I'm working with, how many CFOs I'm working with, how many controllers I'm working with, how many solopreneurs I'm working with, how many owners of businesses I'm working with. And I was able to see, my concentrations, which frankly are somewhat even, but, let's say it's 8 managers, 13 partners, 10 solopreneurs, 5 owners of random businesses that have nothing to do with accounting. But that type of reflection and intention allows me to see where my concentrations naturally have become. And that's informative, because if I saw that I was working with 30 partners in public accounting and only like 2 solopreneurs, then that would tell me that I'm that's really where my niche is. That's really where my focus is. That's where I'm getting the most response and opportunity. And if that was flipped, and I was working with 30 solopreneurs and 2 partners, that would tell me that, again, is really where I'm niched. And that's where I've naturally come to be known in this marketplace because of who I'm working with. So I guess there's 3 ways. It's what you're passionate about, what's the market doing, and then what are you already doing is the 3rd way of how to pick a niche.
Yeah.
The 4th way to find your niche is, what is it that you already have expertise in? Like where not, and this isn't necessarily a reflection based on the clients you have. This is more of your history, your resume. What is on your resume of you having done and had this life experience doing already that will emulate with customers. Like, I'm your bookkeeper for roofing. Okay, well, what makes you so credible for that? Well, it's what I did. Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense.
Been there.
Right? Like for me, it's like, okay, well, what makes you the CPA coach? Well, I've been coaching CPAs for going on 2 decades now. Oh, okay. That makes sense. It's hard to argue with that type of experience. And the beauty of it is like, that's who you want working on your stuff, is someone who knows you and is familiar with you. Like, I always use the analogy of a car. Like, if your Audi breaks down, where would you rather take it? To the Audi dealership that has the parts ready, has the experience, knows your vehicle, can give you the best advice, probably cost more, but you know that you can trust them to work on your cars because they know your car, versus, Joe at the garage down the street, who's, if you drive by his garage, you'll see like a Subaru and a Volkswagen and a Toyota and a bunch of cars. And he's cheaper, but at the same time, it's like, I want my Audi to get the best service, like I'm willing to pay a premium for my vehicle to be repaired by the experts. Just like I want my books to be put together by someone who knows this industry, who knows the chart of accounts, who understands the accounts themselves and percentage completion and the nuances and depletion in oil and gas, like someone who really understands the industry. Like, if it's my business, like I'm willing to spend more for someone who's an expert in my industry than I am for Joe at the garage down the street.
Absolutely. One of the
go ahead. I interrupted. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. Another benefit to niching is, if you're a generic CPA firm or EA firm and you don't have a specific industry or niche, you're in competition with every other general practitioner out there. If you niche, and the harder you niche, your competition shrinks dramatically. Now you're not fighting however many firms there are in the US, you're fighting maybe 3 other firms for clients. And therefore your pricing can go up because less competition, less people dragging you down, and marketing just becomes so much easier when you don't have to compete so hard.
Well, it always cracks me up when you go to a website of a firm, and I think you alluded to this a moment ago, and you click on services, and then sometimes you can click on industries, and you click on industries, and what happens? It's like, it's just like 15 industries. It's like, okay, all right. So does that mean you have like one client in each of those?
in
Does
each
it mean
one.
you have 100 in each of these, or what does
No.
that mean? And how many things are you trying to be? Like as a visitor to that site, I'm kind of. And now, if you get to a big firm, I get it because they've got entire service niche areas where a lot of people are all being trained to focus on it, and that's for a different conversation on a different podcast. But for the solopreneurs especially, and for those smaller firms, there's nothing to be afraid of niching hard. And to your earlier point, it doesn't mean you're saying no to opportunities that aren't within that niche. They will still come to you. My book of business remains 70/30, 70% owners and executive accountants, and 30% random shit that has just come to me over time. And I like doing the random shit because it keeps me sharp. It allows, excuse me, it allows me to see things from a different perspective, and it allows me to be more than just focused on the accountant. And frankly, it's nice to kind of mix it up every once in a while. So I like the challenge of, I don't get on the call and I don't talk about the same things as much. But I didn't intentionally go after that 30% is my point. Like it just showed up.
And it will.
Because
It will
of what I was doing at the 70%. Yeah.
And you'll get referrals from within your niche. Their friends might not be in that niche, and they'll still refer you to those people. So, yeah, it's just a marketing message, and all you have to do on the front end is put a little blurb on your website or your Facebook page on, I am a underwater basket weaving tax preparer.
Yeah, right.
That's it.
Yeah, and the other thing is too, I think I would say on the how is that this is not something that changes overnight. This is not something that you wake up today a generalist and tomorrow you're niched hard. Like this is something that over time starts to transition. And that's why I measure each month, the depth I am in accountants and the depth I am outside of it, so I can see trends. And I'm not going to say that 70/30 is perfect. I'm going to say I like it now, but if I started to see like 60/40, where I'm doing more with folks that aren't accountants than with, like that's a sign to me that I need to ramp up my marketing again in targeting my niche. But if I see it go to 80/20, I might need to back down a little bit. Like I'm getting too concentrated on that niche.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but measuring this allows me to see the progress. And I think that's something I would encourage if a niche is selected, if you go through one of the 4 ways of identifying your niche, measure it today. How many of those clients in that niche do you have? And then bring some intention, our favorite word, bring some intention into this next month in your marketing and your networking and the conversations you're having. Speak to it. If someone asks you what you do, don't just say I'm a tax preparer. Don't just say I'm an accountant. Say I'm an accountant for basket weaving. I'm an accountant for construction. Like it's even more fun to say it that way, right? Because it makes it a little bit more interesting. Like you say accountant, they're like, oh, yeah, one of those.
Oh yeah.
And then you say accountant for construction, they're like, oh, yeah, so you just do a lot of construction work around here? Like, yeah, I know a couple of guys that do construction. Do you? Could you introduce me? Like it creates more opportunities for you in your conversation. When I get asked what I do, I'm like, if I said I was a coach, like, instantly they're going to be like of sports of like, I mean, they look at me and they're like, baseball, football, what do you coach? And so I've trained myself and I'm a coach for CPAs. And then they're like, well, what do you mean? Like, you're like a consultant? Like, no, not really. And I'm a coach. I really help my clients get where they want to go by asking a lot of questions and holding them accountable. And they're like, interesting. And you can see the confusion. Like, first of all, like, what are you in crack? Like, why did you pick that niche? And then I respond saying, because I fucking love them, because they're such fun people to work with, and it's such a challenge. But being able to speak articulately to who it is I support with my coaching allows them to make connections quicker. And, the next time they run into a CPA and the CPA is like, well, I don't know what to do. I'm stuck and I don't see a path forward. They're like, hey, I ran into a guy who coaches CPAs. You should talk to him.
Yep.
And so it helps with business development. So
those referrals are stickier.
Yeah.
If a construction company refers my service to them and they say they specialize in construction, they're going to be more likely to reach out and hire other more than just some random accounting firm that is not specialized.
Well, at that point, it becomes a niche about service. And to your point about, becoming less than a commodity, another way to niche is through service.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a tougher sell. Yeah, you get referred based on service, certainly, and it makes it easy, but niching into service, and by service, I mean client service, it makes it a tough way to communicate. He's
Sure.
really great. You should totally use him. Okay, I've heard that 12 times from anyone I've talked to about another CPA. There's always another one that's better and they have better client service. But, an expert in construction, that kind of sticks.
I agree.
So make it stick. I think if I had any like action items out of this for anyone that's watching is if you haven't niched, consider those 4 methods, consider what you're passionate about, consider what the market's doing, considering the clients that you have. And what was our 4th one that you came up with?
Industry knowledge. You've
Oh, yeah,
worked
your
in the industry
experience.
before.
Your experience. Yes, thank you. So consider one of those 4 ways of niching. Consider all of them. Who knows? Maybe it's the same answer depending on,
Right.
and it doesn't matter which method you choose, you get the same answer. That'd be great. But go through that exercise to see where your niches might be, and then try it on for a month. Try it on with your networking, try it on with your conversations, your elevator speech. Like really put it out there that that's something that you're looking to attract and see what happens.
Yep. Awesome, man.
Cheers. Thank you for watching this episode of the Practicing Accountant podcast, where we discussed fraud and pricing and niching. We hope you join us again for future episodes. Please share and like this episode. And also feel free to visit us at the practicingaccountant.com, where you can learn more about trainings and membership and other offerings that we have. Thank you very much for joining us, and thank you for watching.